is tempting. To see Dire Straits. Now we're talking. Whoa.
Where's ours?
Are they really? Is Dire Straits is really playing Rio right now?
They're playing Rio this weekend, and there's lots of tickets for under 50 bucks a head.
Well,
actually, they're not just playing Rio. They're actually in Sao Paulo Thursday and Rio on Friday, and I think they're off to Argentina after that. So they're on some sort of South American.
Wendy has joined us, and so those that have paid for this musical documentary, you can make those payments through PayPal. We thank Jeff and Zach.
I'm sure Zach's got a Venmo account.
Yeah, right. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast. Two boring guys talk boring facts about boring music.
Well, we are at 5:32, and so I am going to call to order the April 13th, 2021 work session. And we know that Remy will be a few moments late. She let us know, and Adam just joined us. So Claudia, let's go ahead and do a roll call.
Councilor Garvin?
Here.
Councilor Geary?
Present and good to see you.
Councilor Minky? Present. Councilor Chenoweth?
Here.
Councilor Peralta?
Here.
And Mayor Hill?
Here. Thank you, Claudia. We'll recognize Council President Drabkin when she joins us for the record. This evening, we are going to continue with our goal-setting session. Wendy Stassen is our consultant helping us through the process of our level 10s, and goal-setting is the agenda item that we will be dealing with this evening. Earlier in the week, yesterday, the EOS advisory team had an opportunity to spend over an hour working on goals in preparation for this evening. And so with that being said, Wendy, we welcome you, and we'll turn the time over to you.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Zach. Hi, counselors and staff. Thank you for joining us today. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I'm going to start with a slideshow, and I'm going to show you goals in a couple of ways. First, I'm going to show you in the slideshow, and then I'm going to show you the spreadsheet that we use to finalize the goals, which has more detail on it. I didn't want to overwhelm you with the spreadsheet in the initial presentation of the goals, but the spreadsheet might help you to kind of put it in context of how we got to those goals. So first, we're going to talk about, this is our 4th session. Congratulations. We got to the 4th session. What we're doing tonight is we're going to review the big picture for the year and where goals fit into that big picture. We're going to review how we got to the goals to be presented or being presented tonight. We're going to review proposed 2021 goals, talk about next steps, and then really what I want, what I would like as an outcome for, oops, hold on a second. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to go back to this one. What I'd like for an outcome for today, hold on, I'm going to go to my other screen so I can see your faces, is I would like to have us have a conversation, make sure that everybody internalizes and is able to ask questions about the goals, have a great dialogue. You're not going to be approving goals tonight, but I would like to get everything, all of the conversation tonight, so we can make any edits that we want to make to the goals, so that we will not need to have another work session, but we will just have this as part of your docket for the next meeting with any edits that we decide on tonight. So that's our hope for tonight. So let me get this started again. Okay, and I'm going to present. Okay, so this is how we got here. We did work session 1, goal setting kickoff meeting, work session 2, context and support around homework. We did approving the top priorities and plan to create measurable goals. We did a couple of department head meetings, and now we're on work session 4, where we're presenting a draft of the 2021 City of McMinnville City Council goals for feedback. And this is just a reminder, what reason that I'm involved in this is because one of the things that we're focusing on is organizational development and ways to strengthen our McMinnville City Council as an organization. And this traction this is where it fits into traction. We're working to create a shared vision, which is part of traction, leadership aligned with a vision that is shared by all. We're looking to produce data that's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time coupled in order to enable us to practice organizational habits of accountability that will produce excellence in governance. And action is bringing discipline of accountability into an organization and how we execute our work. And so tonight we're working on building the machine to produce excellence in governance. This is the first step. Goals answer the question of what to do in order to have that outcome. And ideally, what we're looking for tonight in these goals is the 20% of problems that we plan to address this year that will produce 80% of the results for us. So big levers for us is what we want to see in these goals. Keep that in mind as you're reviewing the goals and asking questions. Really, we want to really focus in on the most important things that we need to take action on this year. And so deciding what to focus on in 2021, we want a comprehensive understanding of the brutal facts, accurate data reflecting the current state of the city. We want a shared vision of the desired future and a shared commitment, what we're going to do this year to move us in that direction. And goals is the vehicle that we use for that. So inputs we use to get where we are today are a strategic plan input from a broad base of citizens. We filtered through that. We had some city council work on visioning, gap analysis, and the DOT exercise. We had 2 focus sessions with the department head, and we had a significant amount of work from the EOS advisory team to collect the data and to try to process the data into what you see tonight. So to be successful at this stage, we need honest and open and respectful dialogue around what we see tonight. We would like to produce a shared commitment to these goals and alignment on the council around these goals that enables us to move on to the path to excellence that we're going to be pursuing this year. This shared commitment around the goals enabled us to implementation with focus and discipline. This consistency of focus produces data that enables learning. And out of that, we become a learning organization. So when you have consistency of discipline with alignment in an organization, it enables you to collect data about what works and what doesn't work. And that enables you to take the next step, which is to innovate, right? So I always like Steve Jobs. Everybody knows him. He's one of the biggest innovators of all times. And he is famous for saying, people think focus means saying yes, the thing you've got to focus on, but that's not what it means at all. It means saying no to the hundreds of other good ideas that there are. You have to pick carefully. I'm actually as proud of the things that we haven't done as the things I have done. Innovation is saying no to the 1,000 things. And so one thing to note is that goal setting is as much about saying yes, the goals we choose, and saying no to what we didn't choose, so that we can have that laser focus. And that is what enables innovation. So that said, we have two different kinds of goals that came out of our goal work. One is called an output goal, and that basically means that it produces a product for the city. I'm going to go through the output goals one by one. I will go through the second kind of goal, which is an organizational development goal. And that basically is a goal that works on how we function internally as an organization to make us more effective at our jobs. Does not necessarily produce a direct output to the city, but is also important in our effectiveness in the long run. And you guys might be able to see this better when I go to the second format that I'm going to share. Understand how they line up with what we had previously put together, the spreadsheet. I'll show that form too. So you'll have an opportunity to see, kind of understand that better when we have it in that spreadsheet form. So the first draft goal is an output goal. And you'll notice in parentheses, there are names. There are names of people or city council organizational entities. That means that those are the organizational entities or the people that are primarily responsible for driving that goal. And that's important because we do have quite a few goals we're going to talk about tonight. If you'll notice, they're spread across different entities in the organization. So in thinking about whether or not we have the right load, we should think about the ones that specifically are driven by different entities. So which ones are driven by the city council versus staff versus advisory team. This one in particular is driven by a combination of Jeff, Jennifer, and the city council working together. This is probably the biggest lift for goal for the city council. And the goal is to develop a clear strategic plan for the implementation of $2 to $3 million of new revenue streams available to the city. This includes timelines for reasonably timed sequential projects to implement increased revenue strategies, and then implement the incremental steps identified for 2021 in the strategic plan. So,
Wendy?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have a question. I don't know if this is appropriate time.
Of course, yeah.
Is that's a one-time, when you say new revenue streams, are you referring to the ARP funds, the one-time ARP funds that we're getting?
No. Means that over a long period of time, sustained revenue stream. So, and it doesn't mean that we will achieve 2 to 3 million this year. What it means is that we will have developed a plan over time that's a reasonable lift for us to be able to reach that goal.
So you're saying to create a new revenue stream for the city, and is that targeted to a specific project, or is that just general fund services?
It's not, no, yeah, it's just based on general fund. It's not for a specific project. So it's looking at what, in order to continue to function and grow overall as a city, that was what was identified by staff as reasonable, or like the most good target number that along with some, which is another goal that we'll see, some core development work that will enable us to be be able to continue to function and to innovate some as well. So it gives us a little bit to be able to do other things, to take on some other things. Jeff might, who was the one who gave it to me, is raising his hand, so maybe he can go more into depth on that number. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, Councilor Peralta, for the question. Right now we wanted to make sure we had a placeholder, and this is really an order of magnitude number. We have to refine this. We really have to get better forecasting tools in place to be able to run what-if scenarios and give you the sort of real-time response to questions about changes in services and their impacts on the finances. So, right now this number is based essentially on the changes we had to make to the budget to deliver a balanced budget this year and make some positive movement on the reserve policy. So we think that the substance of this goal will sort of be refined over time.
Thank you, Jeff. Before I step off, just two more comments. As we refine this is for staff. I'd appreciate to have better context how that 2 to 3 million fits into the anticipated current service level budget over the next few years. So if you could relate those two numbers together, that would be great. And then the second aspect to that is that we have a couple of revenue streams that have been cut off, at least temporarily, more than a couple. And the one in particular that I would like contextualized within this goal is the loss of the pot funds that relates to Measure 110, because that's like $1 million a year, 850, or probably that number plus some. So those were my comments. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councilor Peralta.
Remy has her.
Oh, go ahead.
Thank you. So I just wanted to ask one clarity point off of what Councilor Peralta just said. You said these are general fund goals. Is that the only place that these funds could go, or could they really be for any project that could ultimately affect the general fund? But if there was a revenue stream that was specific to a department but might offset general fund goals, would that also be part of what's in development? Thank you.
Sure. Jeff, go ahead.
Yeah, short answer is yes. If we identified or discovered a dedicated revenue that could support something that's currently in the general fund, that would create capacity for other general fund services. I mean, sort of a corollary to that is looking at the possibility of a fire district to relieve that financial pressure from the city. Yes, that it doesn't have to be directly related. It could be indirectly related as well, Remy. Councilor Drapkin, thank you.
And Councilor Geary.
Thank you. So some of this is a little clarity, and I think I get it where it's going based on the answers to the previous two questions, but just to confirm, I read this as develop a clear plan for implementing 2 to 3 million of new revenue streams available. What are the new revenue streams? Who's deciding that? Is that us? Is that already out there somewhere that we pick from a list, or is that being implemented? I'm missing the connection.
We'll actually bring some alternative revenue streams to the council. Other jurisdictions and professional associations, folks like the League of Oregon Cities have already done a lot of work identifying typical revenue streams that cities and counties use to support municipal services, and we'll be bringing some of those outside resources to bear as we identify the kinds of things that you could consider here in McMinnville.
And could some of those be, that makes sense. And then could some of the projects also be studies to understand our current fee structures and like SDC rates, and then reassess how and what we're charging to change and perhaps bring in new revenue?
Sure.
So,
Yes.
for example, things we don't currently charge things on would be something that we change our mind and do charge things on.
Yes, that could be part of the exercise.
Okay. Thank you.
Great question. Also, to give a little bit of background, which might be helpful, one of the things, a primary focus, you'll see that a thread through some of this is how we can improve our connection with the goals and financials to really get more streamlined about how we're making decisions and to make sure we're giving really good direction and are really communication going both ways to enable for us to have a more fluid understanding of what's happening in the budget, and we can utilize that in our decision making. So this isn't the only thing, the only aspect of working on the city that will impact the financials. You'll see that there's a thread through this goals that touch on different parts of the financial picture. And we'll talk more about that as we go through. This next one you guys have seen before. It actually should say goal 2. Whoops. You don't want to do that. It actually should say goal 2. Let me go up. Here we go. There we go. And you guys have seen this before. We're already in the process of working through this. This is the fire district. That's going to obviously be an impact on revenue. So that would play into the goal 1, whatever the impact on revenue that turns out to be. And so these are the steps that we're just committing in a goal that we've already committed to previously, that we're saying this is going to be an emphasis. You see staff is the lead on that. So it would be coming to you guys, you as a body, to give input along the way of the staff's goal to continue to work on this, the fire districting. And I should have written fire districting. Oh yeah, create fire district. There we go. I should have written it in bigger letters so it was clear. These are the steps that are slated to happen this year. Any questions on this goal before we go on to the next one? Okay, and I grouped these next 3, 4, and 5 together. They're, you'll notice that they're the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee and the staff. There are more incremental goals that we've selected to move forward on certain things that aren't our primary focus, and the bigger goals is to address financials, this resource gap in a proactive way to enable us to then move forward with other things. So goal 3 is for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Advisory Team. This is already underway for them to create a proposed work plan and bring it to the City Council by August 2021.
And Wendy?
Sure. Yeah.
We talked about that being a date of August 21. It might be appropriate to ask Council President Drabkin if she felt that that is in line, or we could even ask Kylie if that's in line with the direction that we had at our last meeting. Remy, I said that I thought that we could have that proposed work plan in place by August 1st or August 2021. Do you feel that that is attainable? And then Kylie, you could address that also.
I believe it is, even if it's a rough draft form, but yeah, I think that's attainable.
Okay.
Yep, I agree. I think we're right on track to have something prepared to share with the council in August.
Great. I just didn't want to, off of my notes of the last meeting, say, yeah, we could do that. But I felt that, as you said, we were making great headway in that committee. And we now have a chair and a co-chair. And you did a preliminary read of work plan ideas at our last meeting.
Great. A draft goal 4 for the output goals is also staff. And the goal is successfully develop and implement a coordinated communication strategy and rebrand project, AKA branding project, by December 31st, 2021. This is the one output goal that was in our communication objective that we brought forward. We have a number of other communication goals that we're proposing. This is the one between the city of McMinnville and the community, the citizens. And it actually is a project that is currently already underway. So it is with budget considerations, the staff felt like it was well within our purview to make that a goal to finish that project. And they think that will be a nice incremental step towards really improving the communication between the city of McMinnville and citizens. Any questions on that one? Okay, the fifth draft goal is, this is related to the long range planning. Go ahead, Councilor Chenoweth.
Yeah, I'm just a little concerned about projects that seem kind of ancillary and not maybe high priority at a time where we are furloughing our employees. I have some, even going back to goal one, I have great concerns about the whole financial picture and how this is unfolding before us. One question I had in goal one, I was kind of shaking my head as I was reading that, is the 2 to 3 million proposed new revenue streams outside of all of the increased tax dollars we're going to be seeing as a result of all the development that's occurring along Baker Creek Road and out eventually as we start to develop out the other side of the west side?
I'll let Jeff, you want to field that question? I could take a stab at it, but you probably have more detail than I do.
So right now, that's a short-term number and a short-term view. Certainly, as the city grows and more development occurs, there will be new taxes generated as a result of that growth in assessed value. And typically there's also a demand for increased services that goes along with that level of growth. So we'd have to be managing, we can't just think of it as a revenue goal necessarily. We have to manage the revenue and the expense side at the same time. I guess the other thing, and maybe that Wendy's going to get to this in partial response to your observations, Councilor, is that I think this is an ambitious list for any year, whether we're having particular financial challenges or not. And so this is a large list right now. And I think part of what the council needs to do is to work to figure out, is this the right list? Do we need to pare it down? Should it be smaller than what we're presenting now? So right now it's a larger universe than you may feel comfortable or we may feel like we can deliver on these particular timelines, but that's part of the process that Wendy's going to be working you through.
Great.
And it's very difficult for me when I look at how much the budget has grown over the last 6 years. I'm a little concerned to continually grow that and stick our taxpayers with more and more expense, just because we feel like we need to grow the size of government.
Yeah, and Councilor Chenoweth, I put on one of the organizational development slides because I would say the big three for us this year are all around that gap. And they're not just revenue. We started with revenue because that's an output goal. This goal, organizational development, developing core services evaluation, is exactly what you're talking about. We need to do both. We need to look at streamlining what are our core services, cutting, making ourselves leaner, or I shouldn't say just cutting, but just streamlining how we're producing services and deciding what services really are our core services. So what we tried to do, we didn't cut anything that you guys asked us to look into. We made everything having to do with, and we heard that message loud and clear also from the department heads when we got their feedback. The primary thing we are going to be working on is solving that problem. That's the 20% that produces 80% of the results, and making sure that we're functioning as efficiently as possible and we're covering our financial nut so that we can function effectively. So the primary things we're going to be working on, like with regards to how much energy we're putting into, are those things. The other goals we made very incremental, where they're not taking a lot of resources, almost like placeholders that we've acknowledged that these are important. If you guys decide, no, we don't even want those in the goals, that's up to you guys. And I'll show you the spreadsheet that shows what you guys voted to move forward, what goals we came up in relation to those, and then we can have a discussion about, okay, maybe we cut more, right?
Well, I mean, the reality is furloughed employees is weighing heavy on me. And particularly when I see our parks still closed, we can't get in to clean them up. And I just feel like we would be irresponsible at this time to be adding more expenditure at a time where we can't even afford to pay for the employees we have.
Yes.
Well, one thing, if I could speak, if that's all right, the council itself set goals for the increasing the reserve so that we can steadily increase it back so we have an appropriate reserve. And you received an email this last week in regard to a lot of that discussion, including the furloughs, but also dealing with the fact that the reason we're furloughing is because we have to get to this higher fund balance. This was decided last year. So that is definitely going to push things in. And in order to do any form of expansion, we will have to look at other revenue generating.
I haven't seen anything on the expenditure side yet. Am I missing something?
No.
So the goal that I have up now, we hadn't gotten to it yet. And it might be,
I was just curious because Chris said that he doesn't want to see a lot of expenditures, but I don't think we've actually gotten into that area yet. So
no,
we're talking.
did I miss that or?
No, we have not. We have,
Okay. Okay.
So, we were staff, the advisory team. We were very conscientious about asking the question about what the cost would be to the city and time to implement any of these. The costs for the ones that are the incremental steps are all very low cost to the city and low staff. Maybe not moving forward as quickly as some of the councilors might have wanted on those goals if we didn't have the revenue or the resource gap that we're working on solving. But really the resource gap is the lion's share of what the goals are focused around.
So the fundamental, sorry to interrupt, the fundamental issue that you're trying to solve is the structural disequilibrium that every city, including McMinnville in Oregon, is dealing with, which is that the cost of providing a current service level budget increases faster than revenue in this state because of various costs. And so what we're doing today is identifying if there are additional revenue streams that we can put in place to meet the current service level, maybe add additional services, and then identifying whether there are current services that we're providing that we don't need to provide or.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you for clarifying that for me, Wendy. I understand that.
You're welcome. And you know what I'm going to do? It might be easier because, hold on, I'm going to go to the spreadsheet we used to create this. It actually might be easier for you guys to internalize. I didn't want to overwhelm you guys at first with this because there's a lot of blue and green on this, but this actually shows the thread of how we got to the goals, and you'll see the balance. So the first one, we already saw this one by the diversity, equity, inclusion, all the ones in blue. Okay, Councilor Chenoweth?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, to be clear, that what triggered these comments was the rebranding project. So it was specific expenditure that caused me to want to make these statements now.
Got it. But isn't the rebranding project being funded not from city dollars, but from?
It's both.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks.
Yeah. And my understanding is that that project is very close to being done already.
And we have spent the dollars with the consultant. And so why we have it on the goal is that we've done the work. We now have to implement in-house, and we just wanted to make sure that we were able to utilize the data and the direction from the consultants in a meaningful way and not put it on a shelf and deal with it in a couple of years.
Well, except for all of that implementation is going to be cost out of the general fund and out of budgets existing now. As we rebrand all the different equipment, we purchase all the different rebranded items, all that stuff is going to be cost current. So that's, and it may be a nit, but I just wanted to address it now at the outset of the first initial mention of something that requires funding, that I have concerns about doing it at a time when we are furloughing our employees.
Yeah. So let me just give you guys the framework first, and then maybe we can see kind of the overview and then go into detail afterward. So the first one, this is out of the Develop Inclusion Plan citywide and by department priority that was moved forward. A big strategic plan goal that addresses is to create a culture of acceptance and mutual respect that acknowledges differences and strives for equity. This is the diversity, equity, inclusion goal that we already saw. That's an output goal to create a proposed work plan and bring it to the City Council by August 2021. The second one, in order of how it was in the strategic plan, is strengthen the city's ability to prioritize and deliver municipal services with discipline and focus. What we brought forward a couple of things on this one. This is actually a big one for us in that it has the right size services, which is the core of our work around the resource gap. But the first one was regarding internal and external communication. You'll see that, hold on a second here. That's the wrong one. You'll see that the ones in blue are, if I can move over here. The ones in blue are the output goals. The ones in green are organizational goals. And our specific priority was develop internal and external communication strategies, improve our communication structure internally and with the public. And so that communication rebrand was specifically around the city of McMinnville to citizens to address that external communication concern. These three are addressing internal communication. So I know it might be hard to read this. Hold on a second. I see people going for glasses. So for the internal communication, we have three potential draft goals. First one is City Council staff communication goal. And one of the things that came up in this process, in the communicating with the department heads and in just going through this process and learning from this process, is that it would be very good for us to have a goal setting process that is very closely informed by financials, to Councilor Chenoweth's point. And so one of our internal communication goals is for, and this is for the EOS advisory team, so no city funds. It's well, except for Jeff, Claudia, and Susan are on that. We plan on designing a goal setting that it has a very strong communication with staff regarding the financials. And so we have a really strong goal setting process going forward that enables us to make really good decisions. So that's the first internal organizational development goal. Second organizational development goal is Jeff and Jennifer. Again, this came up as part of the feedback from the staff. We feel that and Jennifer did a great job of putting this into words. I hope I captured it well, but the goal is city council staff communication. Again, city manager plans and implements a process for quarterly progress review against goals and scorecards and financial performance, including a goal review scorecard, goal progress measured against the plan, financial revenue plan versus actual, and spending plan versus actual. And this again, this goes back to what gets measured gets done, and being able to have the city council decision making, and the city council being very well informed of what's happening with regards to financials, not just once a year, right? So this also came out of the goal setting. The learning from the goal setting is that we can be much more effective as an organizational body and be providing support for the department heads if we're staying up to date on that. So that would be Jeff and Jennifer working on creating the structure around that. And And then the third organizational development goal under communication is our internal work on the city council. We've already talked about this and committed to it. This would be the council president, EOS advisory, and city council as part of EOS work. City council internal communication goal is 1, implement the monthly level 10 meetings May to December, so just have 1 a month. 2, create a plan in Q2 and implement a plan in Q3 for quarterly team building activities, and that's to create cohesiveness in the team. It doesn't have to be expensive. It does need to be consistent, and it needs to be effective. 3, create and implement a sustainable plan for the maintenance of a current and effective City Council organizational development master issues list. And so that basically means we know how to bring our problems up and solve them effectively as a team. So that master issues list goes hand in hand with the level 10 meeting. So we know we can use that tool effectively to address our most important issues. And we become very good at doing that as a team. So this is all around the EOS work that we already had committed to in that third block. Any questions on the communication goals? Okay. Let me get onto, so this is still under strengthen the city's ability to prioritize and deliver municipal services with discipline and focus. And this one is the one that contains the majority, most significant focus around budget. This is the right size services one. And there are, this is the one we already saw, the revenue side of it. And one of the reasons I wanted to skip to this, this view of goals is because these two go together. So the revenue side is important because we have a gap and we don't think we're going to be able to close the gap completely by taking services out or becoming more efficient. That may change. We may find that, whoa, there's so much that we can improve upon by looking at running more efficiently and reducing and changing our core services focus. This is the part that goes to the reducing the nut, right? There's 2 levers we have. There's increasing the revenue, there's reducing the nut. This is the reducing the nut part of that, the goals. And it's organizational development, right? Because it's us working more efficiently as a city. And so the core services evaluation project, Jeff did a good job of making this an achievable step, make it a SMART goal. We have already, they've already completed a department level core services evaluation using a certain methodology. I'd like the city council to review the results of that, the feedback, and approve the methodology that was used. And then the next step would be to adjust the methodology to implement a core services evaluation across departments, which will give us the information that we need to, we'll begin the implementation of cross-departmental core services. And out of that, we will have what we need to then start implementing changes and bringing that would be in later years, 2022 and later. We would have the information we would need to then start making decisions about how we can streamline or change our core services definitions with City Council. And that currently is with staff. In future years, it might involve City Council more as we start making decisions with the information we're gathering. So any questions on that draft goal? No? Okay. All right. So the next one was accelerate growth in living wage jobs across a balanced array of industry sectors. And this is almost exclusively with the Economic Vitality Leadership Council and partners. So it really would have not very much staff demand or city council demand, but city council will be giving direction. These are 3 top goals that the Economic Vitality Leadership Council has identified for this year. The first one is identify, survey, and data, and then market amenities that professionals, skilled workers need as an attractor for workforce and business development. The second one is 3rd Street Improvement Project, tell the story and lobby for project support. Find funds for necessary architecture and engineering to develop 30% plan set for infrastructure stimulus package. And the third one is plan and start implementation of the Innovation Center development on Highway 18 by Airport. Now, this is not just a McMinnville. The Economic Vitality Leadership Council goes across the partners as well. So it would be other players would play a part in this as well. So the City Council can decide, but those would be the 3 things that would move that forward this year through that Advisory Leadership Council.
And Wendy, as you mentioned, again, that the Economic Vitality Leadership Council has representatives from the Chamber, MDA, MEDP, MIP, all of our partners that work for economic development, and know that this group will do the legwork, but anything that's implemented has to come to City Council because it is a committee of City Council.
Okay, any questions on those 3? Okay. Okay, the next one was around these 2, the create and implement an environmental sustainability and/or climate action plan in the urban reserve area. This is under the guide growth and development strategically, responsibly to enhance our unique character, mutual respect that acknowledges differences and strives for equity. So we put in 2 goals under this. One is an organizational development goal, and this is an incremental step, really just to keep us moving forward on it, that we were careful not to have a big cost associated with this, considering our current situation. So it really is around education. The staff will prepare or present educational or informational items related to climate impact to the council on a quarterly basis in the larger context of the city's diversity, equity, and inclusion work. And the focus will be to provide the information that limits both the city's budget impact and use of staff time. So it's a way for us to be educating ourselves while we solve this bigger problem of the resource gap, so that when we are in a different place where we might be able to invest funds, we have more information. And so it really is an a manageable incremental step, considering the other things that we have on our plate. And that was why that goal was recommended. Any questions on that goal? Okay, this one is still in yellow because it really is from Heather. It's not specific enough. I'm going to get some more specifics from her. But, she has certain things that she has slated to accomplish for this year for a strategic long-range plans regarding our land and our land needs. So it's still in yellow because I still need to get specifics, but this is a manageable step based on our resources and what needs to happen for the city for our land reserves. So the general statement she has is initiate strategic long-range plans that reflect the community's values and opportunities. And I will find out from her what the incremental step for that is for this year. I can share it with the council via email, but we should probably include in our conversation whether or not that incremental step is something that we keep in the goals for this year.
Wendy, and can I add that in addition, it's not just about our land needs, but also about our infrastructure needs. So part of that work will be systematically updating our other master plans for public facilities and services.
Yes, that's right. Sorry, I didn't get that in there. Yes, so the infrastructure and land. So any questions on that one? Okay. We've already seen this one. This is under the identify a strategy for long-term increase in stable public safety services. This is our fire district. We already saw that in a slide. It's an output goal for us this year, and it does directly tie to our resources and our resource gap that we're addressing. And then the last one is establish a formal emergency management program. We also decided to make this an incremental step. And the mayor has decided to take the point person on this. And the incremental step that we're proposing is the following representatives from the city of McMinnville will be appointed to sit on the county emergency council. The chief or a captain from the city of McMinnville Fire Department, a police department representative, a public works representative, an IT department rep, and the mayor. And the McMinnville contingent of representatives will attend each of the quarterly meetings. So this is, again, to educate ourselves until we have the resources to be able to start being more I don't want to say more proactive, more offensive on creating the emergency preparedness program for McMinnville, have us participating in a committee that's already functioning and holding meetings and making sure we have the right contingent of people there to be educating our team. And this would be very little cost other than the time that the members would go to those meetings, and they're quarterly. Mr. Geary.
I think I got lost in the Excel spreadsheet.
No, sorry.
Tree, I fell down a few branches. What is this one under again?
This is the emergent here. I'm gonna, if you have great eyes, you might be able to see the bigger view.
My mother always tells me I have great eyes, but it isn't helping in this instance. Okay, formal emergency management program. Okay,
yes.
Cool. Thank you.
So so you guys can see, I don't know, hold on, let me move this over a little bit. You guys can see, these are the action priorities. These are the output goals. Maybe if I make this smaller, you guys will be able to see them all on one page. So any questions or initial thoughts? And so here you can see it all on one page. It's kind of small.
And then will you go back down to that last one that you were?
Of course, yeah. Hold on.
Thanks.
Let me make it a little bit bigger.
Enhance.
Okay, hold on. Here we go. So proactively plan for and responsibly maintain a safe and resilient community is the larger goal that is trying to address. Make all these smaller.
I don't remember some of the other bullets in that one that we are picking that one over, but it seems like a reasonable body to then make follow-up decisions to how we will plan for emergencies. And
yeah, Zach, we do have a plan enacted within the city, and that's been under the fire department, and we've had some exercises of putting that together. This is not to negate any of that, but we have taken like our CERT program and moved that over to the county, and we're more in line with the county emergency management program under the direction of Brian Young. And so we've been going there with the thought of a fire district. That's why we're getting the police involved and having public works involved. When we have emergencies, it's police, fire, and public works usually. And then the other piece is IT. Cybersecurity is a big emergency management area that we not put a lot of time in, but this is a placeholder. This is a group that I've been in going to these meetings for the last 4 years on a monthly basis until COVID hit. And then all of their activity went COVID, but we will be getting back to emergency management. And the intent is starting in June, we will be putting more emphasis around emergency management, fire, all of those types of things.
That helps illustrate that, Laura. I love this goal. I mean, if anything, the past 5, 3, 2, 1, 3 months have taught us, months have taught us is emergencies change. It's not the same. Oh, that emergency light's going off. We better do that thing that we do to solve that emergency. So to have this group always thinking and talking and preparing and learning and understanding and just sharing information or discussing or understanding what's popping up in other parts of the world. And, oh man, what if that were to happen here? Or fire's coming, that kind of stuff. So I love this one.
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Okay, so that's all of them. I can go through them. I don't think the slideshow was helping. I was trying to make it to where it wasn't as cumbersome as this spreadsheet, but it seems like it might have been even harder for you guys to track on that. What Now it's over to you, Mr. Mayor. Do you want to lead discussion on this, or do you want me to lead discussion on this?
Well, I think, Wendy, thank you so very much. Your time and, the time on council, this has taken the strategic plan, which was a monumental document that we've struggled to get down to 5 to 6 to 7 items. As a council, we have put much time and effort in. And so as you look at the spreadsheet, all these things should be coming back to you because we voted on them, we've narrowed those down, and then what the EOS and staff, and especially the executive committee, has done is incrementally taken those pieces and put them into measurable pieces that we can hold accountability to. And the overarching piece for me is, when we get to the final goal, then we will be visiting those goals on a quarterly basis through a scorecard and including the budget area so that we have less things but more manageable, and being able to react from a policy and procedure and process more proactively. I think Wendy mentioned one other thing, and I would like just to enumerate on that, and then we will open it up, is that we have done our goal setting on an annual basis, and we do our financials on a fiscal basis. And so what we've talked about is putting our annual goals on a fiscal basis so that they dovetail or they fit within the budget. Because sometimes, we get going so much on the things we want to accomplish, but we don't coordinate that with the budget. So one aspect that we've talked about is moving these goals to correspond with our July 1st to June 31st, the goals and the budget, so there's a correlation across the board. And at least as an advisory team, we felt really comfortable in sharing that with the council. And it falls in line, I think, right now as we're trying to put goals together that come July 1st, we'll know where we're going, and we'd ask that we could put our goals that would be the 2021-2022 goals in conjunction with the budget, starting the whole process in November. As the budget's being prepared, goals need to be prepared so that they correspond. So that was one piece we talked about, and Wendy made mention of it, but we didn't go into that kind of a discussion. So at this point, let's go ahead and just have an open dialogue. Zach, I see your hand is up. I can't see everyone's hands that are up.
You want me to
I got the biggest hands, so sorry, I go right
Okay.
While you fix the screen there, mine was actually in relation to what you were just saying, Mr. Mayor, but I love that theme of tying this process more closely to the budget and formulation. I would say one thing would be to maybe start us a little earlier, because we seem to be slower and run around the tree a few more times before we find any resolution, but for good reason. Do you see it involving the budget committee in some of those later parts of the discussion at all to add any value? Or I don't know, it just popped in my head as sort of the other group that reviews the budget that then goes and implements all this stuff, or funds some of the implementation that sort of has serious budget implications. Like, seems like one of our biggest goals is to develop new revenue and strategies to implement that. It seems to me budget committee should jump in and be a part of that discussion. Do you see them being involved in that in any way, or our finished product then dovetails to the budget process and we use that as a helpful tool, or even a few minutes at the beginning of that process to here's the priorities that this city council has set for this budget year, and let's make that happen too?
Well, we can go back to the goal specifically, and those that are working on that aspect would be Jeff, Jennifer, and council. I think it's well within the realm of the council to bring the budget committee in if we see value in doing that, because these are individuals that definitely are going to be spending much more time and effort on the budget process, being members of the budget committee. So I think we can expand that but it really rests with Jeff, Jennifer, and the council to do that. Jeff, do you have any other insights on that? Am I going down the path that you thought?
I never try to predict which path folks are going to take. So my thought is that as part of a regular mid-year budget review that happens well before we start the work of building the subsequent year's budget, having the council and perhaps the budget committee involved in a goal-setting exercise makes a lot of sense. It's easier for us. I mean, if you know what your goals are, and we know what your goals are in November, it's a lot easier for us to build a budget that addresses those goals than if you decide what the goals are in April, when, oh, by the way, the numbers have already been sent to the printer. So I think that connecting it with that mid-year budget review and having the budget committee at least part of the discussion makes a lot of sense from my perspective. I mean, this happened before you joined the council, I think, Councilor Geary, but the year we adopted the strategic plan, some of the budget committee members were sort of paying attention, but they weren't really involved as a body. And so when we got to the budget and we had this document that had a bunch of these strategic plan objectives, they're like, gee, it'd be great to know this kind of stuff. Right. Council makes these decisions, during the course of the year that's going to inform the budget. Having us know about that be useful. Then we can do a better job of being budget committee members. And so we've tried to keep them more apprised of things that happen during the course of the year that could influence an upcoming budget. So I think it makes a lot of sense. I think that having the executive team engaged at some level or another may make sense as well. Certainly the more people you have in the room, the longer it might take and the messier it might be. But from my perspective, if the council is going to continue to set goals on an annual basis, and I think there's a lot of value in that, quite frankly, doing it late in the calendar year and sort of before the holidays really consume people's time and energy, makes it easier for us to be responsive when we're building the budget, because we don't really start that hard work until after the first of the year.
Well, that makes sense. And I think to put a bow on my point, and I'll think about ceding the floor, would be that I'd like to get that group more involved. And I've heard, from what I heard from the mayor, that I think that was a similar thread, or at least involve them. And even if it starts at providing them this document at the beginning of that process to achieve, kind of jumpstart that and get them on the same page, or instead of us being 3 months ahead of them at that meeting, provide some context to those discussions or a finer point on those discussions. And I like just the idea of not just dusting them off out of the closet once a year and involving them in that process more, with more background and ownership in the process.
And Zach, to that point, and I just want to make a statement as it relates to financial over the top. What we're trying to do with our goals and what we're trying to do with our finances are aiming to provide the services that our citizens ask for. Mm-hmm. Through the strategic plan, there was a lot of stuff that was asked for, and we've narrowed that down. When we have comments that we're trying to increase revenue or taxes just to satisfy ourselves, it's not. It's to bring and do the services that our citizens are asking us for. Now, there's a process. As we know, we're looking at efficiencies, we're looking at cost containments, we're looking at a lot of things, but it is looking at revenue, it's looking at expenditures, and working smart together. So when we go through the financial piece, having more people that are connected to the financials, such as the budget committee, and Jeff, absolutely, department heads have to be a part of it. We can't do this in a vacuum, because those are the implementers. I think what we're trying to do is to encapsulate what our citizens want us to do in a fair and effective and efficient way. So I hope that adds some.
Well said. I mean, it's trying to break the cycle of always being behind and caught with these problems, and trying to be forward thinking and proactive and plan for the future of some of those. So yeah, no, I'm right there with you.
Okay.
Just an observation. During the mid-year review this year, there were a number of budget committee members there. They were all invited. So they were all aware of what was going on, and they had opportunities to give input too at that time, as you recall. So we are moving in this direction, Zach.
Well, and we do training with the budget committee members and bringing them around the table earlier because, you know, as you said, it's a month to a month and a half process for them where we're somewhat involved in it on an annual basis. So any other questions that you might have, Zach, at this point?
Mayor Adams had his hand raised for like 5 minutes.
I understand. So I'm moving up to Adam next. Go ahead, Adam.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, so great job tonight, Wendy. There's a lot of information to take in. A couple things that stood out to me was, you know, great points by Sal and Chris both as far as, you know, increasing goal number one, increasing the revenues by that much is a huge goal. So that gives me some pause, and I'd want to, you know, tail that with expenses, but I also, you know, realize what Sal said about it's not just a McMinnville issue and that it's a state issue. So that kind of dovetails into the fire redistricting, and I just want to make sure that we're transparent with citizens when we're doing polling and what fire rates will be and what we intend to do with the revenues that are currently allocated with the city with fire, and that it's not a 11th hour surprise like it was in Newburgh. So that would be something that hasn't really been talked about much. I think it's been talked around some, and so I just wanted to call that out and make sure that we have that discussion as we move forward through these revenues and through the fire redistricting, and realize that those two things do intersect and need to be talked about together.
Well, and to your point, Adam, understanding that we can't move forward with the fire districting without going and having a vote of the people to do that.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So,
and not just our people, but, you know, partners.
The partners in the communities that are going to be a part of the district, absolutely. And so, you know, the polling is something that we are going to be doing so we can prepare ourselves, but we need to have a good communication strategy and talk about our full intent as we move in that direction. Absolutely. Points well taken. Okay, any other comments? Again, I can't see everyone.
The only other thing I would add, Mayor, is, you know, as we're in these tight budget times, it'll give me, you know, pause on when we see staff reports come through for consultant studies and things like that. I mean, I'll definitely be looking at expenses and what's a want versus what's a need to maintain service levels for our citizens while we're trying to build up these reserves and be really prudent and, for lack of a better term, frugal with our general fund dollars.
Absolutely. And the use of possibly grants for getting a consultant in can be very helpful too.
Yeah, I mean, if we're leveraging dollars, that's one thing, but if it's just straight general fund, it would give me pause.
Any other questions, Adam?
No, that's all for me. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions or discussions? Wendy, why don't we take this slide down so we can see everyone? There we go. I mean, I think we've had good discussion, but again, clarifying questions because we've got everyone around the table. The one piece that I think, you know, we're headed for tonight is, you know, do we need to make any changes in the goals that we have before us, understanding that Heather has a piece to get back to us, but again, that's dealing in her department and those are well defined. You know, we've heard information on the UGB this last week that we're moving forward with that, but we still have the opportunity to have individuals appeal that. We have, I think, 20 days for that to happen. And we've had a lot of discussion as it relates to the planning and kind of some of the zoning and the master planning process that we go through. But we've got, I think it's 7 goals in front of us right now with some very specific detail. And is that something that we can live with? So we've heard from Zach. Kelly, any thoughts on your part?
I think 7 is more than enough goals for this year, and I'm happy with the 3 major ones. I think they really hit the focus of what we need to focus on. I've been through this with the rest, the EOS group, and I felt like, generally speaking, that was a reasonable set of goals for this year in view of the financial issues.
Thank you, Councilor Menke. Council President Drabkin, any thoughts on your part?
I think it was a job well done to pare down where we started and where we are today. And I also was like the idea of having more interactive meetings between Budget Committee and Council moving forward. And then I think maybe just a kind of to also make sure that this that as you're thinking about that process, and if we're combining those 2 efforts, just for counselors to kind of note that that also means that there will be, I would imagine, a pretty great demand at that time of year to be combining that process, those processes. And so just to kind of mentally be setting aside some time for what will be a heavy lift. But I'm very supportive of that concept, and I think the goals that were presented were great. And thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Remy. Councilor Chenoweth, additional comments or thoughts that you might have?
Thank you, Mayor. I just hats off to Wendy for the work that she's done to pare this down. What we started with about made my head explode. So trying to ingest it all. So I appreciate what she has done to get us to this point. I echo almost word for word and with the thoughts of Adam. You know, the idea of watching carefully how we're spending money going forward. I'm with him. I'm going to have pause on while we're in these times spending money in areas where we need to be controlling spending just as much as looking for increased revenue. You know, I tend to more look that direction on rather than try to increase revenue at a time when businesses are struggling and people are struggling. So, but beyond that, I just think, just job well done. Thank you. I assume, let me add this. I just want to reemphasize that 2 to 3 million mark is not set in stone. So, job well done.
Thank you, Chris. Councilor Peralta, any thoughts as we have our discussion ending on this?
No, I don't. I appreciate your work, Wendy, and everybody who was on the leadership team that put that stuff together. So thanks all of you, and I appreciate everybody's comments tonight.
Thank you, Sal. And then Adam, any other thoughts that you might have that you'd like to share?
I think the only thing I left out is that I definitely am in favor of moving our goal setting to work off of a fiscal year platform than the current oscillating platform we have going on.
Thank you. Well, with that, my feeling is that we've gotten a hands up that we move forward with the goals as presented, understanding that we have one area from planning and Heather that need to be defined, and Wendy will get that to us as quickly as she receives that. And in that same format, which would be taking a look at our core services goals and organizational goals and how that fits into the same dialogue that we've had. So with that being said, Wendy, do you feel you have enough information and insight from this evening to move forward with this to include this in our level 10s and moving forward, and all the work that's been put up to this point by council and by the advisory group?
Yeah, I definitely do. I also want to extend my appreciation to the council for enduring the process. I think we actually did an amazing job as a body to get from where we started to where we are now. And I also take my hats off to the department heads. Their sessions were amazing, and it was a very organic and fluid process that nobody knew where it was going to go when we started, but I think we ended up with a really high quality product, and in no small part because of the challenge and endurance of the people who participated in it. And so my hope would be that we would be fine-tuning this process so it would be a regular habit going forward, and it will really help to inform our work during the year. So we're going to definitely use the takeaways that we got from this goal setting to make a goal setting that's very effective for next year as well. The next step would be I will fine tune this so it will be in your packets for you to actually vote on approving it in your regular council meeting, the next one you have most likely. And then we'll start the work of scorecards, and that will be through our regular EOS work that will do that as part of the regular work of the city council. So thank you. It's been really a fun process, actually.
Thank you, Wendy. I'm going to turn to Jeff just to make sure that from his perspective in helping drive the process, any questions outstanding from you, Jeff, to the group?
No particular questions, Mayor. Thank you. A couple of observations. I appreciate the sentiment that I heard voiced from a number of councilors about staff capacity and the fact that we're in challenging times right now. I think the time you plan to fix the roof is when it is raining, and the time you fix the roof is when it's sunny. So I think this exercise is really important. And I think focusing on some long-term and some big issues is okay to do when things are tough. We're not going to get it all done overnight, but I think it's good work. I'll also say I've always wanted to start a ska band, and with Councilor Garvin's permission, I think I'm going to name the group the Oscillating Platforms.
That's awesome.
Jeff, thank you. And so as we conclude our work session, again, Wendy, thank you so very, very, very much. I know you and I have had a number of conversations this last week in getting to this point, and you're so very busy, but thank you for your commitment to this group that you served on as a city councilor, but you're now doing this as a citizen because you love the committee and you started a process of helping the council be more effective in our communication and the direction that we have. I feel very comfortable, very good about this process. We've had tough topic tension, as we talked about, because we've gone through a lot and we brought it down, and we've done this through a respectful approach as we were doing with goals. So again, thank you for your direction and your continuation of assisting us as we move forward in this process. So I will just ask one more time, any thoughts or comments before we adjourn the work session this evening? Seeing no hands, thank you. I will ask Claudia, we are back on this Zoom site for our meeting, so you can just mute, and then we'll be back starting at 7 o'clock.
Correct,
Thanks,
Mayor.
everyone. I will call on Councilor Minky. Could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
Sorry. All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Kelly, for leading us through that. I just, for the record, Councilor Peralta is with us now. Okay. That takes us to our point in the our agenda this evening, that we will have comments from citizens. And so anyone may speak on any topic other than a matter in litigation, quasi-judicial land use matter, or a matter scheduled for public hearing at some future date. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. And if you would like to speak, please raise your hand or use the chat function to communicate with Claudia to have that opportunity. When you speak to us, please state your name and address for the record. And so, Claudia, do you have anyone that has indicated that they would like to address the council this evening?
Yes, Mayor. We'll start with Jared Harney, and he's on Zoom.
Thank you, Jared. Welcome. Go ahead and address. It's good to have you here this evening. Address the council.
Hi there, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for having me. That was quite abrupt. I just joined, so it's good to see you all. Yeah, I just wanted to first off thank Zach Geary. I know a while ago he had helped out with this. We're really trying to get this bottle drop thing in place, and I just want to be adamant about continuing to bring this up from an equity lens. Our citizens, it's really difficult to return your bottles and cans here in town if you're not familiar with that right now, due to the pandemic and the restraints in place. I'm personally seeing a lot of our elderly citizens really struggle with this. They're not able to stand in line or sign up online to make appointments to bring cans back, say at like grocery outlet and such. And I realize the way that we're going to be able to get a bottle drop center here in our town is through the bottle drop organization and them finding a place to purchase. So I just wanted to make sure everybody in the council heard how important this issue is for me as a member of the city, and put that out there once again. So hopefully that's on your guys' radar. There is another concern I have about equity in the city, and that is related to our homes and affording the supplies and tools to repair them or to keep them up. And I moved here a few years ago from Des Moines, Iowa. And when I was there, we had a tool lending library that was very useful for our citizens in the area. And I'd like to think that the city could eventually get one of those ourselves. There's several in Oregon, and it's a very progressive place. I think McMinnville could be for this idea. It takes funding and housing of these tools, but it allows its citizens to take care of their properties without high rental or borrowing from neighbors and creating that sort of issue that can come with borrowing tools, So I just wanted our city councilors to hear the importance of maybe a tool lending library. And I know maybe our library itself can help out with this through their inventory system, but I wanted to put that out there today. So thanks for hearing both of those concerns.
Thank you, Jared. And again, you have shared with a number of the members of the council the concerns on both of those parts. So thank you for bringing that back up to us this evening. Thank you. Claudia, do we have any other individuals that would like to address the council this evening?
Yes. Next, we have Tynan Pierce on Zoom.
Tynan, welcome. There we go. Welcome, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. All right, hi everyone. Two topics that I'd love to touch on tonight. One is circling back on a public comment I made at the end of October in regards to the Cahoots and Whiteberg Clinic program happening in Eugene. And obviously since then, the past 6 months, there's been a lot of city councils throughout the nation that have worked collaboratively with a variety of non-police services to offer their communities. And in light of what's going on right now throughout the nation, I just want to again bring this up. So I'm going to be resending that email to all of you, just that had the budget breakdown and sort of how City of Eugene funded everything. And obviously right now, it seems, I don't know the details, it seems that the budget for the city is having some hard times. There's some furloughs going on. But nonetheless, it's still, I think, an opportunity to be creative and to look at the police department and to see what can be reallocated to other services throughout the city, since that is the largest, at least out of the general fund that's being used from the taxpayer money. So I'm going to resend that just to give you all a heads up, and would love to see some more interest, especially because I think the budget, when a lot of us came to talk, that was in June, and the feedback we were given was that it was too late in the process to make any changes. And so just seeing, and also I checked the website and I didn't see any meetings listed for the budget committee. So maybe I'm not looking in the right place. So that's the first one. And then the second one is, I know that the city has been doing a lot of looking into making the city of McMinnville more bike friendly and just really supporting all of those actions and all of those initiatives. And I know that in the the strategic plan, and especially in the SWAT portion, there was a lot of talk around, looking into more bike-friendly community pathways and how do we encourage this. And it ties into the new research that's coming out of the University of Oxford. Christian Brand, their associate professor in transport and energy, really compelling research to just show how one of the cheapest, most economically viable, most healthy ways to combat climate change and also increase health in communities is just by making cities more bike friendly. And just how this can be a really awesome thing for the city of McMinnville can be a leader on, and to just show how I think the studies that you had in your SWAT report was something around 3% of our community can bike commute. So even if we can just get that up a little bit more, and that's a mix of both obviously doing infrastructure work, but then on top of that, having an opportunity to just maybe have community-led initiatives or city council-led initiatives to really kind of put a carrot in front of people for bike commuting or for walk commuting and figuring out ways to really easily cut down on those carbon footprints. I'm not sure if there's going to be a climate working group or anything like that. I haven't seen any things since that meeting. Potentially there will be, potentially there won't be. I'm not sure. Perhaps there's more information about that I haven't seen yet. I obviously am not up to date on you all, like everything you do. So, but just really supportive of all the initiatives around more bike friendly, more walk friendly, pedestrian supported transport throughout the city, and anything that we can do to help support that. Happy to be a part of it, and look forward to seeing what the city of McMinnville can do on both those fronts, on both the reimagining public safety, expanding it beyond just the idea of policing and figuring out ways we can use just that big budget and servicing other places. And also the awesome idea of just having this place be bike friendly as possible and walking friendly as possible. And it's great. So probably at my time. Appreciate your time and look forward to hearing how tonight's meeting goes.
Thank you, Tan. Claudia, any other individuals that would like to address the council this evening?
No, Mayor, that was it.
Well, thank you, citizens Jared and Tynan, for addressing the council this evening. We always welcome your input. That takes us to our portion of the meeting this evening for advice and information. And so we'll have reports from councilors on committee and board assignments. And I'll just kind of, I think I'm going to start with Adam. I'll start at the bottom and work up this time. Adam?
We haven't met for airport commission, and we haven't had another fire districting meeting since our last council meeting, and our YCOM meeting got canceled last minute, but I did meet with Police Chief Scales to kind of go over city strategy a little bit on our due schedule for when our next YCOM budget meeting comes up. So that's all I have for my committees tonight.
Thank you, Adam. I will move to Councilor Peralta. Sal?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a brief report on Council of Governments. We have started meeting on a weekly basis in a policy committee, and I wanted to flag for City Council's attention and staff's attention that the legislature has started a process for considering a new land use goal. There's 19 goals currently. They're looking at a 20th. They've set up this is passed through the first committee and is going for a full floor vote. No, excuse me. They moved it to Ways and Means, so it'll have floor votes at the end. But long and short of it is, it's a pretty significant change to land use policy, and it carries some economic costs to cities in terms of compliance that are kind of similar to what they did with HB 2001. I've already been in contact with Heather about it. There's some aspects I think that staff liked about the policy, but definitely some aspects that carried costs. So they're trying to make sure that local governments are aware of those potential economic impacts. And that's it.
Thank you, Sal, for bringing that to our attention. I'll move over to Councilor Chenoweth. Chris?
I have absolutely nothing for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Council President Drapkin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The DEI Advisory Committee met, as you noted earlier in our work session, elected both a chair and vice chair, Christine Bader and Tiffany Hennis, to fill those roles. Additionally, we had continued training from our city attorney, which is much appreciated and beneficial, I believe, for all city committees. And then we started working on establishing some ground rules and committee work prioritization. So we don't have materials to put out to you yet, but we're working through that process to be able to meet that August 1st deadline of a work plan. I'm gonna ask Councilor Menke if she'll report on affordable housing, because I was absent for the last meeting and she ran that meeting, so it would be inappropriate for me to try to report on it. But I do just want to add that the letter that we signed supporting the Housing Authority's 200-unit project, Stratus Village, that grant was not received by the Housing Authority, and I have been working with them on some alternate funding, and so we were able to at least get our foot in the door on some potential other revenue streams, both in the American Rescue Plan and other state budgets as well. And so that's very much a work in progress. And then I do want to try to get this information out for all of our food and beverage employers, and excuse me really quickly while I pull up another email and make sure I get my language correct on this. But something to be watching for is the Restaurant Stabilization Fund that is included in the American Rescue Plan. And this covers all food service or drinking establishments, including restaurants, caterers, brew pubs, food stands, food trucks, tap rooms, and tasting rooms that are not part of an affiliated group with more than 20 locations or publicly traded. So eligibility, you cannot be publicly traded or have more than 20 locations. And then the number one piece of advice that has been dispensed on this is that if your business falls under any of those criteria, that you have your 2020 taxes complete, because when the program opens, the grant applications will only be open for 21 days, and so you will need to be ready to apply right away. And that's a total of $28.6 billion that'll be distributed, but it'll be distributed throughout the entire United States, and those are grants, and they'll be available through the SBA, not through your bank. Only through the SBA will those be distributed, but they are grants and not loans. And then also happening at the state level, that will have a big impact on our area is House Bill 2358, which eliminates the federal exemption on overtime for agricultural workers, and sets and establishes a 40-hour max work week. That's still going through, but that would, whether or not it passes, it has implications in our area. And I think that's the bulk of my relevant information to share with you here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Councilor Menke, Kelly.
Good evening. As Remy said, I presided at the last Affordable Housing Committee meeting, and we had two main topics aside from the regular reports from the from Housing Authority and YCAP. And so the main gist of these were density bonuses. And let me try and get myself together here just briefly. Okay, so we discussed density bonuses. Basically, they are refers to the number of dwellings per acre. A dwelling unit may be a detached home on a separate lot or an individual apartment in an apartment building. In the simplest sense, a density bonuses are a way to allow more housing units on property that would otherwise be permitted by zoning. They are usually offered as an incentive. Density transfers are a similar regulatory tool that can be offered as a development option or incentive, either alone or together or with density bonuses. And in the course of the conversation, two suggestions were made that we focus on performance-based density bonuses and small lot allowances. So the staff recommended out of this discussion that proposal for the two items listed that I just gave will be evaluated and developed further in coordination with the middle housing standards and those bonuses authorized for provision for special affordable housing units. So basically, some of this work will now go to the Planning Commission to work it through, but the Affordable Housing Committee did give their approval. The other main topic discussion, state law is inclusionary zoning, and this has come up lots of times in the last few years. State law generally prohibits cities from adopting inclusionary zoning provisions that require a certain percentage of dwellings to be affordable, except for narrowly defined situations of larger multifamily buildings of 20 units or more. And that's very rare in McMinnville. And the applicable definition of affordable in the law has become greater than 80% of median income. So McMinnville several times now has pursued a legislative approach for this. And basically this was a decision just to go forward and try another option of working with this legislative again. Obviously our Representative Ron Noble has been very helpful with this. And then I just wanted to talk about another meeting I attended, the 3 Mile Lane Transportation Modeling Committee, or transportation modeling portion of the committee. We haven't met in, I think, almost a year. But the outcome of this, the last time I saw it, there was like 3 different transportation plans, and there was all sorts of possibilities on the table, and we talked it through, and we also talked through the overall layout of the 3 Mile Lane. And the outcome of this, after they've gone through the modeling, it still has to be approved by ODOT, but they basically eliminated $50 million worth of on Highway 18 with the 3-mile lane area plan and increased employment and housing density at the same time. So hopefully this will make it through ODOT. They've done a lot of work on this. My kudos to Heather and her team and ODOT for working with her. So that's about all I've got. Oh, I do have a Visit McMinnville meeting next week.
Thank you, Kelly. Let's move over to Councillor Geary. Zach?
Hello, okay. Landscape review, the March meeting was not held, and so still on that one, nothing to report. MacPac, first Thursday of April, saw the, as you saw the news register, we were above the fold, as they say. Presented the initial concepts for potential layouts and space planning for both the new rec center as well as the new library. And we got the chance to the whole meeting was kind of the first half, here's the rec center, and provide feedback and have a good discussion. And then the next half of the meeting was all talking about the library and have those discussions. And we're having a special second twofer, MacPac meeting month, and we're going to meet this Thursday evening, and we're going to talk about the senior center, which was also part of the consultants' work to come up with a layout of how that could be expanded. And then we are going to be getting a second look at the rec center and the library after they've run through our comments and feedbacks, MacPac's comments and feedbacks, as well as it's gone through some staff that are working in those Parks and Rec staff and other staff to provide their comments and feedback. And we'll see some revisions and have some discussions around those next meeting. The Climate Rules Advisory Committee, the state level, nothing to report there. And then the Active Transportation Committee, Highway 99 group that we're looking at the bikeability and making some cool in-ways there. We're meeting again this Thursday and should have some good community feedback to sift through and hopefully get moving on some direction there. So that one's going to be cool to see how we stick the landing on that. So that's all I've got to report.
Thank you, Zach. I'd like to report on McMinnville Urban Renewal Advisory Committee. We met last week, and we had an opportunity to revisit the city center housing strategy. This is our second really good look at the housing strategy in the downtown and that urban renewal area. Chuck came and gave us an update on that, some things that we really need to continue to discuss and move forward from that perspective. We also had an opportunity to talk about the 3rd Street Improvement Project of improving 3rd Street with MURAC involvement. We talked quite a little bit about with the infrastructure dollars that we would need to be able to cover about 30% of the cost to be able to get infrastructure dollars and how we might be able to do that. My understanding is that through the American Rescues Act that our House of Representatives have a opportunity to bring projects forward, and Ron Noble is looking at the possibility of about $500,000 earmarked for being able to do some of the design work on that. It's a process that we go through, and so we'll hear more about that a little bit later. I think all of you are very much, so again, that was what we talked about. We had a request for a facade improvement grant that we approved, and then we had an opportunity to have an appeal from someone that we had approved an awning, and the individual had gone outside of the approval of the color of the awning, and so we had a good discussion around that. We approved the appeal, and we will cover that in that it was the same material. It was a color scheme that was acceptable, and many of the awnings on that building, on that block, had the same color, so we were able to do that. And then we had a brief discussion on Alpine Avenue maintenance, the cost of how we can make sure that Alpine Avenue remains vibrant with the gardens and the planting and some of those things. And so those were pieces of our meeting last week. I need to just spend just a little time talking to you. The last 2 weeks, we put tremendous efforts on the Newburgh-Dundee bypass. As you may be aware, infrastructure dollars are available. Earmarks are back. We've not seen those for 11 years. And so everybody's scurrying to get their hands around some of the dollars. The one piece that's a little discerning is that our representatives at the federal level, Congresswoman Bonamici, they have earmarked dollars of about 20 million, but that's over her whole district, which is 5 counties, okay, including Multnomah and Washington County. And so the thought of being able to get all 20 million for the bypass isn't going to happen. And so we've met with the Congresswoman and her staff, and we're trying to put together a project, because that kind of money isn't going to do much for us on phase 2. So we have taken a piece at the 219 intersection where the bypass goes into 219, and we have Wilsonville Road that has been redirected, and Winooski Road, and that's all going to be coming together. That's about a $30 million construction cost, and those, and that's with contingency of about 40% in there. So we are asking the Congresswoman to help us fund that, along with the governor has earmarked, she's taken her earmark of 32.5 million up to 35 million, but that's a process, that's lottery funds, and that has to go through the whole process. We lost out last time that she earmarked money for us, but we're trying to work with ODOT, with our legislative, both federal and statewide, to be able to get the intersection at 219 that would align the 3 roads of Winooski, Wilsonville Road, and it would be then the beginning of phase 2 going up to Rex Hill. A part of that whole discussion has been local dollar match, and we have been very specific to ODOT that any local match that we would do is phase to the finish. We're not going to do it for every phase or every project. And so we're working with ODOT on that. And so I just bring you up to speed a little bit, a lot of information going on. We've also reached out to all of our representatives and senators in this region and had dialogue with them Friday, today, yesterday, and tomorrow evening. There will be 3 of us going before the Ways and Means Committee to advocate the bypass with them also. So that's kind of an updated version of the good things that we've been doing. MWAC, which is the Mid-Willamette Valley Transportation Advisory Committee, did not meet during the month of April. With that, let me go and go ahead, Zach.
I left one little tidbit off my MacPack update. At the top of the meeting, we said thanks and goodbye to Ann Lane, one of our Parks and Rec staff who was project managing that and pushing it off and doing an absolutely fantastic job, as well as taking care of our senior center. She moved on and has taken a position to run the Forest Grove Parks and Recreation Department. So Forest Grove is in good hands. And we're sorry for her loss, but she will still be a voter in the MacPack process and has indicated her support. So
and
we're sad to see Ann go.
And she still lives in McMinnville, so she'll be a citizen, and I'm sure she's going to be around and visiting with us. But again, congratulations to Ann.
And thanks, Remy, for the proverbial kick under the table.
Well, I'm sure Susan would have brought that up. So I'll go ahead and start with Susan. Susan, can you give an update from your perspective?
Absolutely. Thanks, Councilor Geary, for covering that. It was a nice opportunity to wish Ann well. She had a nice article in the News Register as well today about her history with the city of McMinnville, and we're all excited that she worked so hard to get to this point to be ready for this next position in her career, and we're going to miss her terribly, and we wish her the best of luck. So thank you for bringing that up. A couple of good things. One, we are out at Joe Dancer with the kids in spring soccer right now. We had about 650 kids register, and that's very close to pre-COVID numbers. We were about 700 pre-COVID. Another piece of good news, we received a $20,000 grant for summer camps from the Oregon Department of Education Early Learning Division. This will allow us to give scholarships to low-income families in McMinnville to participate in camps such as our STARS Day Camp and some of our other specialty camps, and we can also buy equipment for those camps so that we can make it a really fun summer for McMinnville families. And then going back a little bit in time, back in 2019, you all heard a recommendation from the KOB Technical Advisory Committee, which had several layers of recommendation after a few years of work in partnership with the school district. And at the end of actually, in August of 2019, you heard a recommendation that included potentially looking for a way to bring other providers into McMinnville and expand the opportunities and the potential spots for families in McMinnville, because through that study, we knew there were not enough spots in KOB for all of the need for after-school care in McMinnville. So we've been working with the McMinnville School District, and City Attorney Amanda Geil-Hinman and I met with them, and we have drafted a request for proposal that we plan on sending out to solicit additional providers and potentially new providers to perform the duties of after-school programs in the school district buildings in McMinnville. So we're looking forward to getting a timeline ready and issuing that, so hopefully we can have it out the door for the fall.
Thank you, Susan.
Mr. Mayor, if I may, I have a question for Susan.
Sure. Go ahead.
Put my digital hand down. It relates to the parks and getting ready for the summer. I know the Lions Club is having a helpful hands cleanup on the 24th, kind of help clear debris and trees and move things and just sort of help with capacity to clear from the ice storm, clear parks to get ready to have fun there and be out in the open in those public spaces in the spring and summer. Do you have a compendium of those? Do you have more on the horizon? Do we need to get out and get community groups going and help? Are these things that you want to do a handful of, or can you speak a little on that, or ways that maybe the community can help get the parks open for the community's enjoyment spring and summer?
Sure, and Mike Bissett might want to address this as well, since park maintenance is out of the community development department. Right. Liz Flazar is really doing a great job of sort of directing traffic for the volunteers, and we have a lot of them that want to provide aid in the parks. I think the one that you mentioned is going to happen at Wortman. I just received a flyer on it today. Liz is coordinating all that. I can send those out to the council as I get them as well, so you can see what they are, and we'll post them on our webpage as well. So we have a lot of volunteers, and Liz is doing a great job of organizing them and getting them out in the field to help.
And to that, Zach, I know a local church went into Discovery Meadows 2 weeks ago and did a very good job. I went over and inspected what they've done and cleaned Discovery Meadow up tremendously, where we had a lot of down trees and bushes, and parks or the park maintenance had gone out and cut bushes and trimmed them back, and they were able to clean that all up. So public participation is a great way. It's a great way to serve and have fun.
Thank you to everybody who's working on that as well. Thank you.
Matt, are you at the Civic Center?
I am. How are you doing? Just a couple quick things from the PD side of thing. We've got finishing up some training with our latest recruits. Rebecca Parker soloed last week, and then Daphne Plumo solo this coming week. So with that being said, the good news is that we have nobody else in training, and Michelle Nass was just soloed as a record specialist. So we have nobody in training in about 3 days. So are there any questions questions from the council, that's really all I've got right now.
Any questions for the chief? Thank you for that report, Chief.
You're welcome.
Debbie McDermott from the Fire Department. Debbie, welcome.
Thank you. Not much from the fire department. Chief Leifert will be back in his office on Wednesday of next week. Just letting everyone know today, the county chiefs and the Oregon Department of Forestry enacted a burn ban due to the wind conditions for the next few days, starting this evening, and we'll be posting that out on Facebook and in the websites for our rural areas. So we'll let you know when that lifts. But other than that, we're just cruising along.
Thank you, Debbie. Any questions for Debbie? Thank you. Let's go to Amanda next. Welcome, Amanda.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors. I wanted to give you an update about an appeal that I filed on March 29, 2021 with the county regarding a 104-foot monopole cell tower that is being proposed to be developed in current EFU land that is part of our UGB amendment that we just passed. So if you recall, SW-2, which is in the southwest corner, right on the city's edge. The site is 551 Southwest Hill Road. It's right on, so where they're looking to locate this monopole, it's Verizon, is right on the edge of the city where we are looking to have medium and high density residential in the future. So there was four main points that we were making in our appeal, but whenever telecommunications or any other sort of public utility is going to be, or any other sort of utility is going to be located on EFU, the state has certain requirements that you have to meet. So our first basis was essentially arguing that those criteria for locating on EFU were not met. In particular, Church on the Hill has a cell tower on its property right now that Sprint uses. And so our argument was essentially that they could co-locate there. And Church on the Hill has indicated that it is open to, exploring that opportunity. So that was the first basis. We also have an agreement with the county. It's pretty old. It's from 1981, where essentially we are supposed to coordinate on development that's going on while land is still within the county, but in our UGB, to make sure that we're not getting these conflicts arising. And so basically we didn't find out about this until after the director's decision to approve it had already gone through. And so another basis for our appeal. Right now, the appeal hearing before the Board of County Commissioners is scheduled for Thursday, May 6th at 10 a.m. And that will be a virtual hearing, and a notice to property owners within the area was sent out by the county as well as to us as the appellant. So we will be appearing on that matter. If you have specific questions about it, I'm happy to talk more in depth about it. And that's all I have for you today.
Thank you, Amanda. Let's move to Jennifer.
Good evening, everyone. Like us, I do have stuff to report. It's been a busy couple of weeks. We did get our published audits for the city as well as the urban renewal in the vault. Yay, finally! And the auditor will be coming to your May 11th meeting to go over the results of that. So that'll be lots of fun awaits in finance land for that. And then we did get an initial budget balanced, and we are now working through analysis and putting together the budget books, and hope to have that out in front of you all. I think it's sort of a 3-week timeline to go before we'll get it issued, hopefully at least a week ahead of the budget committee meeting.
Kelly?
I'm just curious, what is the date for the budget committee meeting?
Let's see, I don't want to misstate. I have intentionally not posted it because last year we pushed it out a few days. And since we're a tiny bit behind, I wanted to make sure that we could get the document published to still give people, review time. So I'm just bringing up the calendar. I want to say, if everything goes to plan, where is it? May 19th would be the budget committee meeting. And if we needed a second one, it would roll to the 24th. That's the plan. And I'll know in the next week or two whether we can stay on that or if we need to push it at all. So.
Thank you, Jennifer. I realize that it's not final, but it's nice to have an idea.
Yeah, sure.
And I see that we have a memo down on the 19th already on our calendar. So again, that could move, but that's what was sent out initially.
So that's all I have.
Thank you, Jennifer.
Jennifer, just one request. Sorry, Mayor. Can I get my budget book electronic only? No hard copy for me?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that Rhonda will be doing, if she hasn't already, is exactly that. Ask you how you want your budget book so that we don't do more paper than is needed. So, absolutely.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You bet.
Kylie?
Mr. Mayor?
Oh, go ahead.
I've had my hand up since our attorney spoke.
Okay.
So quick question for Amanda. If somebody is wanting to know more details about what the city is doing, should I refer regarding that tower? Should I refer them to you, to Heather, to whom?
Sure, that's a great question, Councilor Chenoweth. To myself or Heather, and I actually am glad you asked me because I forgot to acknowledge how much help Heather gave me on that appeal. And so I did want to also commend her for all her help on that. So Heather, from the perspective of how it works with our plans that the council adopted for the UGB expansion, is probably the best person to contact. For specific questions about the appeal process, that would probably be directed to me.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Amanda. Kylie?
Good evening. Just a couple of things to report on tonight. First off is that the classification compensation study is still chugging along, and this week our employees will receive updates on their classifications, and will begin the appeals process for any employees who believe that their position was misclassified during this project. So we are still moving along on that, and that's kind of a little project update. On Friday last week, I was asked to present along with the City of Wilsonville's Human Resources Manager, Andrea Villagrana, and Heather Gantz, a pretty well-known recruiter / headhunter in the public sector. We presented the Northwest Women's Leadership Academy on interviewing and contracting and negotiating. So it was really nice to get to represent the city in that Zoom venue. And then, as you all have heard, we have employees who are furloughing. This last week was the first week that many of them did that. We have 82 employees who are furloughing in some capacity between now and the end of the next fiscal year, though the majority of those employees will complete all of those furloughs before Labor Day weekend. So predominantly they're happening over the summer. The city did apply for the Workshare Program. We have 81 employees who have applied to be a part of that. So almost every employee has submitted paperwork for the Workshare Program. The Workshare Program is especially helpful right now. One of the reasons is because the way that unemployment is usually handled, the city is on the hook for some of those dollars. And right now, due to changes in legislation, we are able to not have to pay that. So we have no cost to pay unemployment dollars $300, which is what Workshare is it really is. It's partial unemployment. There's also a huge benefit for employees right now because there's an extra $300 amount through the federal pandemic assistance. So the majority of employees on the Workshare program are actually coming out financially ahead in some way. Of the 81 who have applied for the program, only 11 will actually see a reduction in their weekly pay. That may change if employees decide to furlough 2 days in a given week. That would alter how the Workshare program works, though the vast majority of employees would still see a net gain on that. So the impact to staff is minimal in the short term. In the long term, there are a little bit of an impact to the PERS reporting because we report on what an employee's gross earnings were, and their gross earnings from the city will decrease because of the days that they're not working. But besides that, that's really the only kind of downfall to the program right now. Downfall in the sense of what the program is. Furloughs are not a fun thing to go through. And there's a reduction in service associated with that. So I wonder if any of you have questions about the Workshare program. I'm happy to answer them. I've been sleeping, eating, and breathing it for about 3 weeks now, and I could give a whole presentation on it. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to entertain those.
Let's go ahead and open it up if there's any questions of Kylie.
Kylie, I don't have a question, but I did want to say thank you for your work on this in terms of helping the city to meet the financial situation that we're in, while also being creative and enabling most employees to remain whole. My question is, do you know, and if you don't have these numbers at your fingertips, maybe you could just email me. I know we have a large number of part-time staff who are park staff who have been laid off prior to these furloughs, and those positions haven't been filled. I was wondering if you had an estimate of both the number of people affected by that, and then second, the number of sort of FTE, roughly FTE positions associated with those layoffs.
I don't have those numbers off the top of my head. I will pull that together and share it with everyone on the council. I do know that we are recruiting and hiring back many of our summer positions for Parks and Recreation, and Susan may want to pipe in and share anything about that. We have been recruiting those part-time positions for a few months now as we started to open up some of our services. There I see Susan coming up. The part-time, and it's really the seasonal employees who don't have regular hours with the city, aren't eligible for the Workshare program. As such, they've not been asked to furlough. We're really sticking with people who have regular hours. Majority of those positions are full-time or are part-time plus classification, which is over half-time, and there's some benefits associated with that.
Thank you, Kylie.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing I would add to that, Councilor Peralta, is as Kylie mentioned, there are a lot of employees that we use for our part-time employees have left the area or are no longer available or interested in work. We're having a really difficult time actually filling positions right now. And anybody who may have been impacted by the furloughing at the pool, we have opportunities for them to supplement their hours in other areas of Parks and Rec so that they hopefully don't feel much of a reduction in that area as well.
Susan, what areas are you currently hiring in? Maybe some of us can kind of help you get the word out.
I will send the announcements out to you all if you have any. We also need volunteer coaches. We are looking for everything right now in Parks and Rec. So if you don't mind, I will send you an email that you can blast out to people if you would.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you, Susan.
Yeah, absolutely.
We also post all of our positions online on our website. So if you go to the City of McMinnville's website under the HR page, you'll be able to see job openings, and all of our current openings are up there right now.
Remy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Kylie, based on your saying that you could give a presentation on Workshare, and then asking us if we have any questions. I realize I don't really know what questions to ask. If there were 3 to 5 highlights that you would want anybody to understand skeletally about how Workshare works, what would they be?
Definitely. So the Workshare program's actually been around through the state of Oregon since the 1980s. It's actually 2 years older than me, so it's not new, but it's new for a lot of public sector organizations. Typically, Workshare has been really beneficial in the manufacturing sector, or in businesses where slowdowns or seasonality of work could negatively impact staffing. It exists to help employers retain employees. It also can minimize the cost of rehiring or hiring new people and then retraining or training new people due to kind of seasonality in work. One of the examples that the Workshare folks give frequently is the wine industry, being that it is pretty seasonal in nature. You have a harvest, you crush your grapes, and then you wait. And in that waiting period, that might be a slow time for folks. So Workshare could be helpful during those periods of time. Employers have to have 3 employees participate in the program. We definitely exceed that by having 82 that are eligible for it. To be eligible for Workshare, you have to have a reduction in your weekly hours by 20 to 40%. So for a full-time employee that's working a typical 8 to 5 job Monday through Friday, they would need to be gone 1 or 2 days per week. The majority of our employees are furloughing 1 day per week, so that they'll be able to take full advantage of the Workshare program. Those 1 to 2 days per week that would be missed, employees eligible to receive 1 to 2 days of unemployment benefits. So typically your benefit for unemployment would happen for an entire week. What Workshare does is it estimates what your weekly benefit would be for the unemployment benefit, and then they divide that by 5 and get your 1 day benefit, and then times that by 1 or 2, depending on how many days were missed in a given week. One of the big benefits for employees in this program, I'm not sure if any of the counselors have ever been on unemployment. It is really not a very fun program to be on. Every week you have to go in and file a claim and say that you did not work, that you were available for work, and that you applied for jobs. And it's a lot to push through electronically or over the phone. With Workshare, all of that happens through the employer. So employees actually only filled out 1 initial claim form, provided other direct deposit information type things. That's been submitted to the state. And then every week, employees are filling out a form, getting that back to me that tells me how many days they missed in a given week. And then I create 1 massive spreadsheet of claims for the week, and then I send that off. So just this last week, our first week on furloughs, we had 74 people furlough, and we submitted the Workshare initial forms for that for all of those 74 people.
Any further questions, Remy? Thank you for that good question, and Kylie, thank you. Anything else further to report to us?
Nothing else. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move over to Mike Bissett, our contracted in employee. Mike?
Good evening. I think the only thing I would add this evening is just a little bit to Susan's report on the soccer program, and a big shout out to her staff as well as the park maintenance staff for getting the facility ready for soccer. The council will remember we had flooding in Dancer Park earlier this year, or late last winter, and so it was an extremely challenging push to get the fields ready, and the staff performed exceptionally well as usual. So kudos to them and to Susan's staff that were involved as well.
Thank you, Mike. Heather?
Hi, good evening, Mayor and Councilors. I just wanted to apprise you of one program that we are pushing out this month in terms of public open houses. It is our response to House Bill 2001, the missing middle housing code updates that we need to be working through. We are working on that right now with the Planning Commission. We have a consultant who's working with us. The consultant is 100% grant paid for, so I'm happy to say that. The program is called Shaping Up. So we're calling it Shaping Up here at McMinnville. If anybody wants to go to the webpage, they just have to Google Shaping Up McMinnville and you'll find the webpage for the project. We're using similar vectors that we use for our Growing McMinnville Mindfully so that we can start branding and people can start locating these things fairly easily. But for people to know what it is that we're going to be bringing into the single family residential zones, which is all of our residential zones except for our new R5 zone. The ability to build duplexes, triplexes, quadplexes, townhomes, and cottage clusters. That's what's mandated by state law. We're adding to that tiny homes and single resident occupancies as well, which is kind of like a boarding house. It's something that will change neighborhoods a little bit, so we want people to know about it. We are going to start open houses this month. At the end of the month, we're going to do it similar to what we did with the UGB, which is offer several open houses over a Zoom meeting environment. We heard from a lot of people in the community that worked well for them. And so for the week of April 26th, we are offering open houses on Tuesday, April 27th at 2, Wednesday, April 28th at 6:30, and Thursday, April 29th at noon. We're trying to hit different time frames and different days so people can participate when it works for them within their calendar. This will be the first initial public open houses. We'll continue to have these as this project evolves and the discussion continues over the next 6 months. We'll probably have another 3 series of public open houses as well. But we're going to be asking the community different questions as to the things that we can make decisions on locally, which isn't a lot. The state has told us how we need to move this forward. But where we can make decisions, we're going to get out into the public and ask people what they would like to see happen. So if you're interested, please participate in those. It's important to give us feedback, and you can follow it on our project website.
Any questions for Heather?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Zach.
I just tried to go to the site and it wouldn't let me. I don't know if there's an error. Or you
I Googled it right before we started talking.
Or if you have the Zach filter on it, so I can't join the conversation. But you mentioned tiny houses. Have they figured out, and I could read, but the site wasn't working. Have they figured out the split, what they're going to do with tiny houses on wheels or tiny houses on foundations, and come up with size? Just sort of tiny house means something different to many different people.
Yeah, so tiny houses on wheels are RVs, and they are not legally tiny homes in the state of Oregon. So that is not part of our discussion. Our conversation is really specifically as defined tiny homes built as tiny homes.
On foundation.
Yeah, on a foundation. And so the discussion the Planning Commission is having is if somebody wants to build a tiny home and live there, do they really need to put on a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet or 9,000 square feet? Does that make sense? And if it doesn't make sense, how do you nestle that into an existing built out environment so that it's compatible and an asset in that environment? So those are the discussions we're having.
Cool, thank you.
Also, last Friday, I received word from DLCD of the approval of our submittal of the UGB. And a part of that, though, there was a DLC remand letter February 29, 2012, the objection letter from Ms. Redmond Noble and Ms. Redmond. So I just throw that out. We've sent that out to you. You have the full document and you can read that. Any further update, Heather, on that?
No, we're all in the waiting period now until April 30th. I will tell you there is a lot of interest. I do get daily phone calls from property owners who are part of the UGB expansion area as well as potential developers. And so there is interest in how this is moving forward. We're having discussions with them about our planning process, which, if you recall, includes doing area planning before annexing into the city. So that was part of your goal setting discussion, which is the community values and long range planning initiatives. We will do area planning before these properties come into the city. So we're talking with interested parties about that process.
And then I'll just ask one more question of the council. Any questions of anyone on the navigation center and being able to move that from Yamhill County's name to McMinnville, that 1.5 million? Okay, then you're aware of that. And also Representative Noble's request for 3.5 million to augment that. It will be a request that he's putting in, which could possibly give us 5 million for a navigation center in McMinnville. More to come on that as they go through the legislative process, but that's the latest I know on that for our information. Thank you, Heather, for your report. Jeff?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Just briefly, as it turns to spring in the Willamette Valley, some of us are taking more inhalers and antihistamines as we're dealing with the early pollen season, but it also is a time of renewal. A couple of significant partnerships that one is long-standing, one is relatively new, that get ready to launch very soon. The Farmers Market starts on May 2nd, so we're just a couple of weeks away from that, in partnership with the Downtown Association and also with the Downtown Association. The Dine Out program will make its second appearance this summer. It will be bigger and badder and better than ever. This time we'll be opening the Dine Out program starting the weekend of Memorial Day, so May 28th, and through July, through the end of June, we'll be closing Friday through Sunday as we did last year. It'll be a little bit longer. This year it'll be from Baker to Galloway, so we added a block. And then starting on July 1st, we will also close on Thursday evenings, and that will continue through Labor Day. That is my brief report for the council tonight. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jeff, for that. Okay, let's move forward, and we have our consent agenda, which includes minutes for February 25th, 2020, our regular council meeting, and March 10th, 2020, regular council meeting. Is there any counselor who would request to have any items moved off the consent agenda this evening and placed as a regular item on the agenda? Seeing none, then I will ask for a motion to to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved by Councilor Geary and seconded by Council President Drabkin. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? The consent agenda this evening passes unanimously 6-0. That takes us to our resolutions this evening, and the first resolution that we have is Resolution 2021-20, a resolution of the City of McMinnville authorizing the city manager to execute a third amendment to the personal services agreement with Ballard King and Associates LTD to continue the facility and a recreation master plan and feasibility study project. So we'll turn this over to our Park and Recreations Director, Susan Muir, to present. Welcome, Susan.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a resolution to approve expenditures that were authorized in the budget. This contract is before you because it exceeds the value that we can approve administratively. As you all know, this entire contract has included the phase 1 work, which was the work we brought to you in July July of 2019 that then kicked off into the exploration of uniting the rec center or the community center and the pool into one building, and then bringing the library into it, as well as the senior center. And then we appointed MacPac. And as Councilor Geary provided in his reports, we're now to the fun part of the exercise where we're starting to look at floor plans and some massing, and we're really looking forward to working under this amendment so that we can bring you a final project in September.
So any questions or discussions from the council? News Register did a very good article of summary of the planning and some of the discussion that happened at MacPac. I think it was last week. Any questions for Susan? Seeing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve resolution 2021 it says 10, but well, is it 10, Claudia, is it resolution 2021-10 or 2021-20?
It's 2021-20.
Thank you. So I will ask for a motion to approve resolution 2021-20.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Council President Drabkin and seconded by Councilor Geary. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Resolution 2021-20 passes unanimously 6-0 this evening. Our second resolution this evening is 2021-21, a resolution awarding the contract for the construction of the Northeast High School Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project, project number 2019-7. So we'll call on Engineering Service Manager Larry Sherwood to present. Larry, welcome. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Mayor and members of the council. I'll refer you to the council packet and the staff report from Josh Adelman, who is our new project manager that we've had since January. The resolution in front of you would award the contract for the Northeast High School Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project to Emery & Sons Construction Group. Emery & Sons has done, this will be their fourth project for us, so we're happy about that. The project is part of our continued efforts to minimize infiltration and inflow into our conveyance system. And it involves the rehabilitation of approximately 15,000 lineal feet of sewer main and 24 lineal feet of service laterals. The project also includes the last of our street resurfacing transportation bond dollars that we're spending, which is the overlay of 17th Street between Hembry Street and McDonald Lane. So unless there's any questions, staff recommends that City Council adopt Resolution 2021-21, awarding the contract for the Northeast High School Sanitary Sewer Rehabilitation Project to Emery & Sons Construction Group in the amount of $2,674,254.
Thank you, Larry. Any questions for Larry? I have one, Larry. Do all of the replacement that we're doing in this project, is it in the street? Do we have to go through any property as we've done in some work heretofore?
Yeah, I would say probably 75% of this project is in backyards.
Okay.
So it will be impactful to residents.
But as you say, we have a deteriorating line that we just need to do that because of the outflow that's going into our water table.
Yeah, that's correct. And the new technologies, I guess, are not really new anymore, but pipe bursting and pipe lining are two proven methods to reduce the inflow. And they cause way less disturbance to people's backyard. So we'll be using those techniques to do the majority of the work.
Mayor, and I'd also note that Larry and his team have done a pretty extensive job reaching out to all the residents that'll be impacted by the project. So for whatever reason, there was a period in the 60s and 70s where engineers thought putting the sewers in backyards was a good idea instead of putting them in the streets. And so we've had a number of these projects that we've had to go back in and repair those pipes. And where we can, we try to move sewers into streets, but it's not cost effective to then make people replumb their houses to bring things out to the street, and unfortunately end up with a new pipe that's still in the backyard.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that clarification, Larry. Any other questions? Seeing none, then I will ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2021-21.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved by Councillor Minke and seconded by Councillor Geary. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, indicate by saying nay. Resolution 2021-21 passes unanimously 6-0. That is the conclusion of our city council tonight. It is 8:10, and I will adjourn the city council. Thank you so very much. You've got a little found time. Have a good evening, all.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.